Well,
Hey,
hello
hey.
there.
Hey, Kellen, back
Hey,
from your
Brad.
vacation. Did you do something different with your hair?
Vacation.
You
I
look
was.
a little
No.
different.
I didn't go on vacation. What are you talking about, Brad? I was here last week. We had a great
I mean,
time, didn't we?
but you were on vacation. You were clearly in a different place last week.
Or was I? No, I think it was pretty the same place. I mean, I'm wearing the same outfit that I was wearing last
You're
week.
definitely wearing the same outfit.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It was a good show last week. It was a
a
little
very
weird.
good show.
You were oddly underprepared compared to
I
your usual, but I just chalked it up to you being busy with vacation things and the new baby and stuff. But
yeah, no, I think the
whatever.
issue. I think I had just gotten my vaccination, and I think my
People are
No,
calling
it's
you an imposter.
no,
I'm
no.
pretty sure that's Kellen.
This is me. I've got my passport right here.
Very familiar. Don't show that on the internet.
This is me. I'm not going to show you anything else for this, but this is babyface me right here. Look at this. This is
that is babyface.
babyface me. Yeah, I think it was just more. I was a little out of sorts, a little it was I was feeling a little off,
It's fair. We all have our off weeks.
Oh yeah, and that was the weirdest thing. Is like I remember I was saying things, and I was like, "Well, that can't be true." Like when you asked me that question, that very obvious question, would I rather eat or sleep? And I answered sleep. That would what a silly thing for me to say, right? That there's no way.
Very confusing. It was
very confusing. No,
I thought you were doing some kind of a bit, but I couldn't.
You know what,
figure it
Brad?
out.
Maybe I was doing a bit and I didn't realize it. But I'm here
sometimes I
now.
have trouble sort of understanding the bit until it's a little too late. So.
I get it. But I'm happy to be here, Brad. And again, Brad, as always, you look handsome. You sound incredible. Can't wait to talk with you about stuff tonight.
There's so many good things to talk about, Kellen.
So many good things.
So many good things.
Brad, I've got many questions for you tonight. I've also got. We could do a test. I've not done this test, so I'm a little. I don't necessarily know if I want to do the test tonight. I think I need to test it first because we have done some tests in the past, like when we did the alignment, and I was like, "This is 40 questions. I should have gone through this once before."
Right.
But yeah,
a little awkward. I'm assuming this is our friend BJ on the Unrefined account.
No, BJ's there. BJ, the web guy, he's there as well. BJ, we should check your account. Maybe you got hacked.
Totally hacked. Talking about other Kellens. I mean, how many Kellens could he know? It's not a super common name.
There is only one me, and it's the same person who was here last week talking with you, Brad.
Definitely.
I got my hair cut. I don't know if you noticed. My hair was a little longer. A little grayer.
A little different, yeah.
A little different last week.
Different. Looks good.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Brad, I've got a question for you.
All right, hit me.
All right, here we go. We're going to jump right into this. What is the farthest you've ever been away from home?
The furthest
you've ever been away from home.
From home.
And you could say this home you're currently living in, or you could say childhood home. But what's the furthest you've ever been away from home?
I guess Vegas would probably be the furthest I've been.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Vegas is like a different world. So yeah, probably.
It definitely is. And it was hilarious getting there, and the Uber driver on the way to the hotel wanted to know if we needed to stop at a dispensary along the way.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so this wasn't too long
out of
ago.
the airport. No, it was a couple of years ago. Yeah,
there you go.
Wasn't too long ago.
Brad, what's the first thing you do when you get to Vegas besides like decompress?
Right. We didn't go to the dispensary, by the way. I was already planning on getting very drunk at the hotel.
Yes.
And so that is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Before the first social gathering that I had to do. I was there for like basically a big hangout meetup thing for podcasters.
Just a big hangout meetup thing for podcasters. No
stuff.
Big deal.
I don't know if you've heard Nerdtacular.
I have heard of Nerdtacular. Yes.
So I was there for Nerdtacular. That's
fantastic. What was that like? Brad?
So it was a bunch of nerds. So it was great. It was a bunch of drunk nerds in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
There was a room dedicated to board games, which is super nerdy.
It sounds like Gen Con. There you go. I love it.
I mean, it seemed like that kind of a vibe for
Mhm.
sure. But yeah, it was really good.
Mhm.
I definitely needed to be quite drunk before I got social, but
Yeah.
it was fine. It was good. It was a good time.
Good, Brad. Good, good, good. What did you think of Vegas, the city, the destination?
Hot.
Hot. A little hot there,
But
right?
it was fine. I didn't explore all that much. I went down, was it Fremont
Sure.
Street?
Whatever
The
the
whatever.
strip
Yeah,
is.
I went down not the strip, but
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the other. I think it's Fremont, but whatever. It
Mhm.
was just off the hotel we happened to be staying
Well,
at.
there you go.
So I walked down there. I saw some topless nuns and some random other things that I
Wonderful.
assume is just Vegas stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a good time. Did a little bit of gambling, a little bit of blackjack, that kind of stuff. Not
What
too.
is your game of choice when you're gambling there, Brad? I mean, are you like Rain Man level like when you're playing blackjack?
God, no. No. I prefer poker actually because I'm much
Oh,
better at reading people
that
than
makes
people
sense.
are at reading me.
Oh, yes.
So poker is a good time usually, but blackjack is fun too, especially because like the dealers are basically on your team most
Yeah.
of the time, right? Like they don't care if you
They just
win.
want people to have a
So
good time.
yeah, it's just a good drunken time.
Um, yeah. What do you think of gambling, Brad? What is gambling?
Well, as someone who has made all of his spending money on the stock market for the
Yes,
last few
and
years,
I think that's different, though. I feel
is
like
it?
I
Is
think
it?
it kind of is. Like I
It's
think
it
gambling.
is a little bit
I,
different,
I
but
I think you can look at market trends, and I think you can look at things that are happening in the market and understanding what is going to happen. Um, and know that there's going to be some changes potentially with what's going to happen within the market, right? You can see GameStop going up.
sure.
You
But you can do the
can't.
same thing with poker if you play enough
I,
games.
I think so, but there's a variable of chance, right? There is still,
Sure.
when it comes to poker in general. I used to live with four guys, and they went to Vegas every year, and they went and played professionally, and they always were like, "No, I got this, I got this." And I think there is a certain element to poker that you can understand, but there is still got the cards, man. There's
Oh,
still the
sure.
cards that you can't necessarily control,
Yeah,
right?
you got to play often enough that the increase in your odds from you understanding the game
Oh yeah.
over time happens, often enough.
Yes.
Because each individual game, there's a
Mhm.
lot of randomness, but you play often enough, the sort of patterns work out. As long as you know when to quit,
That is absolutely the
which
element,
is
is
sort of the
when to quit.
gambler's dilemma, is not really understanding when you're like, okay, great, I made my money back, or I won a decent joke, or whatever's like, I'm out.
Yeah. How
Instead
do
of
you
just
feel
like,
about
oh,
how
I
do
made some money, I'm
I
playing more.
the last time I was in Nevada, I was in a wedding at Tahoe. We were staying in California, but you can go across the street and you'd be in Tahoe, and you'd be in Nevada, and you can go and gamble there. And I went to a slot machine. I hate slot machines. I pulled it, got $100, and I was like, great, I'm done. I'm done for the weekend.
Nice. That's the way
I
to do
made
it.
$100. This is it. This is all I need to do.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, I would like go with a certain amount of money. It's
Mhm.
like, look, this is the amount of money I'm using.
Yeah.
If I make it back, cool. If I
Fantastic.
lose it, I had a good time
Yeah.
spending money. Like,
The point of going to
great.
Vegas is to spend money. If you go to Vegas and you don't spend money, then you can try, but you can get free drinks, you can get other stuff. Like there's a way to play the game, and everyone has a good time, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
good.
it's the cost of a fun evening out,
Mm-hmm.
and you get free drinks and have a good time and whatever. It's so as long as you're doing it reasonably responsibly,
Reasonably responsible.
it can be
Yes.
a good time. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a slippery slope.
Very slippery.
Which is purposeful. I mean, they very much
yes.
design the entire experience to be a
Indeed.
slippery slope. But
Yes. Yes.
it is.
You ever been to horse races? You ever been to the horse races?
I have not been to the horse races. No.
That is an experience I think everyone should go to. Years ago, I went to Del Mar, where the big horse races are in California, and did not know I was going to have as much fun, because Del Mar is sort of like the Kentucky Derby sort of vibe. It was
Okay.
beautiful. Everyone's dressed up in their finest clothes, and I was like, "This is great. This is a blast. I see why people enjoy this." Bet on a couple races, and it's the silliest, stupidest thing. You're like, "This is even dumber than rolling craps," right? It's like these are horses. Like how I don't know anything about these horses, but when you won, you felt very, very satisfied.
No doubt. Yeah. Pittman knows what's up.
That's a very wise. It's a very wise thing, Pittman.
Should write a song or something about that.
Something about that. The gambling guy.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, hit me with a question. I'd love to hear it.
All right.
Isn't it great when I bring questions as opposed to sitting
really
back?
It really is convenient.
Really, it's convenient.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Last week was fun, though, just firing off question after question at you.
I'm sure it was. And again, I've watched the tape. I looked.
We learned a lot about you.
We learned a lot about me. I looked very, very attractive. I want to also apologize, Brad. I feel like because I was someplace else, I kept making sexual passes at you, I kept saying I'm trying to get you attracted. I get it, Brad. I get it. But I just want to make sure that I didn't step over the line.
You don't have to worry about that line with me, Kellen.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Very attractive man. But we are both married, so it's complicated.
We are.
But,
it's a little complicated.
Complications happen.
It happens. It happens.
Let's see. Kellen. Oh, here, just a nice, easy, breezy one here.
Oh, I love breezy.
What movie can you watch just over and over and over and over and never get sick of it?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's the first one that comes to mind. I think that's a movie that I've seen probably 100 times and I could watch another 100 times. Never gets old. Performances are perfect. The writing's great. It's fucking weird. It's great. Another movie I could probably Princess Bride. Princess Bride is really sure. Princess Bride is
Independence Day. Gary says,
of course, Gary, of course. Yeah, Princess Bride is like acting. It's just so good, right? The acting is so good. The story's so good. Rob Reiner does an incredible job. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's another one I can watch. Amelie. There's another one I could watch again. The Amelie, that one just, whoo boy. As a millennial, that one hits. That one hits me hard, Brad. I could watch that again and again and again and just sit there and be like, yes.
Sure.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, there's a bunch, really. The one that I probably have rewatched the most, like in fairly fast succession, would be Groundhog Day.
Oh, Groundhog Day is great.
Fun. It's good to have just a marathon day of just Groundhog Day on a loop.
Oh my gosh, right? Just going and going and going and going, and people are like, "What's going on here?" It's like I'm just watching Groundhog Day.
Yeah, just watching Groundhog Day over and over and over again.
Over and over.
Another like the Pirates of the Great Salt Lake.
Oh,
can't get enough of that one.
That's one great.
Always good. Super absurd. Just a fun one.
Yeah.
Hackers. Just
Hackers. I was going to say, but Hackers is in there.
Comfort food for me, basically nostalgic comfort food.
Oh gosh, Hackers is so good. At what point are you going to introduce Hackers to your son?
Probably a few years.
Mm-hmm.
A few years.
He needs. You don't want to introduce that world to him too soon.
No, he needs to have at least a slightly better understanding of the concept of computers beyond the few apps on his tablet.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll definitely happen.
Okay.
Well, Police Academy 4.
Police Academy 4 is
Citizens
great.
on Patrol, I believe.
Citizens on Patrol, absolutely. Nick has excellent taste in movies.
Does.
Excellent taste in movies.
Short Circuit 2, also very good.
Johnny 5 is alive, right? Also, the main guy in Short Circuit 1 is also the bad guy in Hackers.
That is accurate. Yes.
Yeah. PCU Pittman is such a good movie. PCU is so good. Have you ever seen PCU, Brad?
Doesn't sound familiar.
It is there's a ton of people in PCU. It is very irreverent. It's a college movie. what's his name? The guy who does Mandalorian. The guy. Why am I blanking on his name? The main producer for Mandalorian. The guy who did Iron Man. Why am I blanking on his fucking name?
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau's in it. Jon Favreau's in it.
Okay.
It's pre-swingers.
I'm looking at the
cast is
now.
amazing.
Okay.
The cast is incredible.
Yeah, this is not firing off any neurons. So I'm
you
not
should
sure
watch.
if I've seen
You should
this.
watch
I
PCS.
will.
Yes, Piven, David Spade, young David Spade, and essentially it's sort of again, it's sort of Animal House-esque in terms of dysfunction.
Sure.
It's very, very good. Favreau's fantastic in it.
I will definitely watch that. That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, I got another question for you, Brad.
All right.
What form of transportation do you prefer? Air, boat, train, bus? I'm not going to say car. You don't get car.
Fair.
Or
fine.
sort of
ruin it for me. Fine.
Human propelled transportation that way, like in terms of a bicycle or a dog sled, a dirigible.
Dirigible would be pretty
right.
Cool.
Dirigible would be pretty good, right?
Probably train. Train's good. I've gone on a few trips.
Trains are great, right?
Yeah. Very peaceful.
Very peaceful, right?
As long as you're not cramped in like a really crappy train, but like
even a crappy train has its own charm, right?
Sure.
If you're like, I mean, sure, there are. This is for me. I used to hate being on the public transportation here in Chicago, and people just cram in, and everyone's just assholes. It's just so difficult. People wearing their backpacks and just being jackasses. It's the worst. Sure. But I miss that so much. I miss the feeling of like we're all in this train together. We're all getting into places. There's something about that. Like there is something to be said about everybody jammed in together. But if I also didn't have music or a podcast,
right.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we're essentially the same size. You're in the same boat as me. As long as I have enough room, I'm okay with whatever kind of transport. Yeah, the problem is that most public transport situations are not necessarily set up for people that are 6'3" and above. No. Not necessarily like set up counter to them, but it's just not a thought that they put into it. Kind of goes so it's very random whether you're going to fit comfortably or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an uncomfortable situation. I will say this, Brad. I think you would enjoy travel by boat. I think if you took a Atlantic cruise across the pond, sure. I'm sure there's plenty of ships that'll go from Newfoundland to Iceland.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, that's good.
I got to say, there is something really. If you're ready for it, it's like it's everything that you enjoy about a train, but it's also like, and then there's nothing. You're just in a sea of water, and you're like, it is very interesting to go on a tour that way. I think cruise ships, traditional like Carnival cruise ships, the rest of those cruise ships, that's a walking hell in my opinion. But if you can get on a classic, like a steamboat, and it's just like a bunch of old people and you. Brad, you're going to love it. You're going to absolutely love it.
That does sound good.
Right?
I mean, I did have a decent amount of fun on the one cruise that I've been on, but it was a whole bunch of nerds, which is sort of my sort of strategy, I guess, for that kind of thing.
Well, then again, Brad, if you're around people that you know and you love, then you're going to have a fantastic time, right? If you're around common people and you can say, great, I'm going to go watch the Doctor Who marathon on the second, the second level. That's going to be fantastic. Oh, there's the Settlers of Catan tournament happening on Sunday. I'm going to get in and I'm going to try and win that big old prize. That's fantastic. But a bunch of, 20-something partiers who are doing, meth and coke and wanted to get into fights. That
doesn't sound as fun to me.
It's not so fun. It's not so fun. That would be fun for me last week. Not fun for me this week. Not fun for me this week.
You were digging pretty heavy into the rum last week, so it was a good time. Yeah, we sort of touched on movies already a little bit, but what's your favorite holiday movie?
Oh, my favorite holiday movie. I'm a big Halloween fan.
Sure.
I like Halloween quite a bit. So does that, like, that's the thing is, does a horror movie count as a holiday movie?
I mean, sure. Why? Halloween is a holiday. Right?
Halloween is a holiday movie.
Yeah.
I would probably say it'd be a tie between Halloween and Nightmare Before Christmas. I think those are my two favorite.
For sure.
I like both of those movies quite a bit. Let me see. Are there any other holiday movies that I enjoy? I enjoy White Christmas. That's a classic one that I enjoy. You know, sure. Holiday Inn, that comes from White Christmas, comes from Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn's great. Problem with Holiday Inn is there's some extremely racist parts of Holiday Inn that are sure. unforgivable, which ruin the movie. But the songs, the dance, it is also wonderful, which is why White Christmas is the better of the movies. Even though White Christmas isn't as good as Holiday Inn, it doesn't have the racism that are
that is kind of a problem.
It is a big problem. It's a big problem. It's one of those things about these classic movies is when you get to that stuff, you're like, well, I know we can't cut it out. We gotta keep this here, but I guess we have to. How do you feel about that, Brad? Do we censor racism out to keep the art good, or do we have to accept the fact that this was the way people behaved and we have to say this is the grossest part of the movie, and do I still get to enjoy it, or do we say nope, it's racist, do we get rid of it?
That's a tricky one, right? With stuff like that. Anything sort of, racist or like slurs, whatever. Like even what is it? Bill and Ted now, like new releases of Bill and Ted have a warning at the beginning.
Yeah,
because of one particular moment that is very problematic.
Yes,
but it's literally like 3 seconds, and the rest of the movie is totally fine and inclusive, and everything is great. It's like that one moment. Oh boy, that's rough. So they put a warning at the beginning.
Yes.
So maybe that's kind of the direction. At least some of those could go, depending on how problematic it is. But
okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that line would be. That's tricky.
Tricky, right? It's
and
a
would
hard
probably
thing
be something better asked to someone with better emotional intelligence.
Maybe. That's always one of those things, Brad, where I struggle, especially with art this way, to be like, okay, right? Like, okay, how do I separate the artist from the art, right? If Woody Allen was one of my favorite filmmakers for years, his writing was fantastic, Andy Hall, Manhattan, these movies are fantastic. He is such a problematic person. Do I take all of his work that I love and toss it out? I think I have to in some ways, because he's not correcting his behavior. If Woody Allen said, yeah, I'm a fucking scumbag, let my art stand, but I will remove myself. No, he's never recanted. He's never admitted anything. He's a terrible, terrible human being. I think if somebody was like, who can I bring up? Let's say Cosby was like, yeah, I did all the shit and I'm bad and I should go to jail. Please don't. The Cosby Show is so good. You should all still love it. Like, for me, I can't watch the Cosby Show anymore, and I feel bad about that. But like, it's tough.
It's pretty rough. You could do like the Harry Potter fandom does now, and basically just consider J.K. Rowling no longer part of the Harry Potter fandom because she's too problematic. But they want to keep the source material. It gets fuzzy. It gets real tricky and fuzzy.
It does. It really, really does. And then you have to say, like, well, I mean, again, no offense to Potter fans. Is it worth keeping it? Is Harry Potter a good character? Is Harry Potter a character we want to keep around? I don't know.
I don't know either. The Riff Tracks versions were pretty funny, though.
They were very funny. Brad, I have an odd question for you.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the fictional monster known as the vampire?
Sure, yeah.
Yes. Brad, is it possible to be a good vampire?
I mean, vampires are made up, so it depends on the rules that you want to follow.
Okay, all right. So let's say, for the sake of this conversation, Brad, that vampires are real, right? And we're talking about the traditional vampire, not the sort of Twilight, sparkly skin vampire, right? We're talking about your Traditional Nosferatu, stake in the heart, garlic crosses, sleeps at night, sleeps during the day. That sort of vampire, right?
Sure.
What we do in the shadows, that sort of shit.
Sure.
Is it possible for, if you were a vampire, you could live a moral or ethical life? Or is by being a vampire, you are essentially living an unethical or unmoral life?
If I let's see, in this situation, do I still have the ability to like think the way that I currently think?
Absolutely.
I just require blood, and
you require blood,
the sun, which is
exactly.
pretty normal, actually.
Pretty normal, I was going to say. You replace blood with coffee and whiskey, and it's pretty the same.
It's very similar. One of my neighbors was definitely convinced I was a vampire when I was a kid for quite a while.
She didn't leave, right?
But yeah, I think I could these days. It would be tricky. There would be complications.
Some complications,
but
right?
You could say run or work at a blood bank and get, blood voluntarily from people, even paying above market rate, because you don't have to buy regular food.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do that, and you work nights, and that's not really that uncommon these days, working from home and working nights and stuff. It would be weird potentially, but like
strange.
Enough people do it that it wouldn't be impossible by any means.
Could you be a vampire who targeted bad people? Could you say, I'm going to be the vigilante vampire. I'm going to go after the bad guys.
You're going to be Dexter the vampire.
Right? Dexter the vampire literally would be such a good show. Dexter
working the night shift as a blood splatter analysis guy. It's the same. It's the same show, except he's a vampire.
It's a vampire, right? Same cast, make it the same show. Dexter vampire, such a sexy good show.
Sure.
Right?
I could see that working out. Again, like there's complications, but I can see a potential for that working.
So yes, some potential. Do you think it is there would be issues with becoming a vampire and needing the blood, right? You need the blood, Brad.
Sure.
You need that blood. Right?
Like, how much blood do you need?
I'm not a vampire lawyer. I don't know how much.
Well, that's what they're made up. So the rules are very flexible.
It's very flexible, right?
But if you could get enough blood from paying people for their blood, let's say, there's a lot of weird. You could put a Craigslist ad, and if you're paying enough, people will let you take the blood.
They'll take the blood. Right?
And if you're an actual vampire and you don't also need to buy food, you got a pretty high blood budget.
But the problem is, Brad, where's the money coming from, right? If I'm not working during the day and I'm working at night, and the thing that I need the most at night is I need to wake up, I need to get that blood. Okay, so what am I doing for a job, right? Am I in tech? Am I in tech support? Right? And what am I doing?
You could work at for a call center from home.
Call center, and I'm just sitting there just like, yes, no, yes, we can lower your rate. Absolutely. Have you considered bundling your package? And you're just like, fucking blood. I need some blood right now.
That's the same way I am now, except for caffeine. It doesn't really change anything.
It doesn't change too much.
It's like tricky, but it seems doable.
It seems doable.
And if you're a vampire, if you really need the blood, you go steal some blood for a little while.
Yeah, you need that blood.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brad.
There's enough people. There's probably people. You could put a website up like, I want some blood. Like, you
I
want
need
to
that
come
blood
over and let me drink your blood. And people.
But the problem is, Brad, is we think about this about food, like, oh, it's just blood. But if you're a vampire, again, vampires are fake. If you're a vampire, you probably need a certain type of blood. You probably need a level of blood, and at a certain point, you're like, sure, you drink Soylent, Brad. So maybe
it depends on the rules of the vampire, right? There are vampires that drink like rats in an emergency.
Yeah.
So, like, could animal blood work at least as a stopgap until you can afford to bribe someone for
maybe? Who knows? But that's the thing is, like, great. Let's say you're like, is that still ethical? Is that still moral to be paying people for their blood? That's the question. That's the weirdest thing to be like. Can you be a
society does that already?
Well, but is society ethical and moral? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
I mean, that's a different question.
It's a different question, yes.
All right, we were talking about the efficacy of being a vampire. You don't bring the morality and ethics of society into this.
So I felt
we're
like
having a reasonable discussion.
I thought we could bring up the dialectics of vampirism and kind of dig into the Plato's theory on morality in terms of vampirism.
Sure.
Maybe we can talk about Hegel's thoughts.
I think we're on the same page generally, Kellen. If they're a consenting adult and they want to sell their blood,
absolutely.
I mean, hey, so it just really depends on how much you need, and if you can arrange, if you can be like the night shift guy at the blood bank and like offer people a little extra money on the side for
give me some of that blood for me.
You could have a job and get your blood, and then when you have enough saved up,
spend a little on the quality stuff, right?
Exactly.
You go downtown, take a nice girl out, put an IV in her arm, suck her blood, suck her toes, whatever you're into, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Brad. Excellent answer, as always.
Good. He didn't catch on that I'm a vampire. Okay, moving on. Helen, if someone narrated your life, who would you want that narrator to be?
Oh, that's a great question. What is her name? I would want Kristen Bell to narrate my life.
Okay, that's
I would want
choice.
Kristen Bell to narrate my life. That would be fantastic. Because she is not me, right? Kristen Bell is the opposite of me. And the fact that if I was going through life and it was Kristen Bell as my narrator talking about stuff, fantastic.
You could go like Veronica Mars era Kristen Bell. Like it's all right. She's doing a lot of narration.
She's doing a lot of that
sort of pseudo noir style narration. Like that would be a good.
I think that'd be good, right?
For sure.
Yeah. What about you?
I was thinking about this. I would probably go with Lewis from Ant-Man. The guy who just can't tell a story without it just being ridiculous nonsense.
Oh my gosh, he's great. He's fantastic.
And I think that would make my life a lot more entertaining if
that would be very funny.
That level of narration, including all the voices being
all the different
narrator voices. So good. It's so good.
I like that, Brad. That would be good. I think that'd be really funny. Brad, here's a can I ask you I've got two big questions.
Okay.
Two big questions for you. Would you rather talk about metaphysical aspects of life, or would you rather talk about feelings?
Is there a difference between those?
Exactly, Brad. Are feelings metaphysical, right? Absolutely, Brad. You played.
Let's go metaphysical.
Okay, great. So, Brad, is the mind the same as the brain, or do we have what sometimes is referred to as a soul that is our consciousness?
I would say that the mind is a byproduct of the brain.
The mind is a byproduct of the brain. Okay. So to expound,
so it's just the brain doing stuff.
The brain doing stuff. That is the sort of the learned behavior, or is that a natural thing that our consciousness sort of comes from this?
I'd say probably a little bit of both when it comes to humans.
Excellent. Very good. I'm into this.
Yeah. Consciousness, at least for me, I generally consider it sort of the brain trying to understand what it just did and justify it.
Sure.
So it sort of tells the story of what it's already done or what it's in the middle of doing.
Sure. So does that then mean for you that the Kristen Bell in my head, who is narrating for me, doing my sort of internal monologue when I'm like, fuck, man, I should have said something else, right? Like that is When do you believe in sort of a Freudian analysis of different layers of how your brain sort of works in terms of an ego, a superego, an id, or are you much closer to an ideology of nope? But brains are it's a chemical jellyfish in my head, and when it happens, we're doing is trying to say, well, that I guess that goes in that bucket and that goes in that bucket. So
pretty much that second one,
yeah. So does the concept of a soul, and we're taking the soul and the aspect of it away from any sort of religious aspect, right? We're taking the soul in terms of, we're not saying a heaven and hell, and that's that thing. Is there any sort of, if we're thinking about it on a scientific level, that energy does not go away, right? That this idea of this consciousness is an energy field. It's an electrical field. You can think about whatever it is. Does that constitute a soul? And what happens when the brain and the body goes away?
I would say same thing that happens when you turn the electricity of your computer off. It just goes away. It turns off. Electrons, spread out into other things. You're not creating or removing anything sort of on a universe level, but the thing that you would have called the mind isn't being powered anymore, so it's just gone.
It's just gone.
How about you, Kellen?
I don't disagree with you, but it's like there is this separation for me. Like, I understand philosophically where you are. I am completely understand in terms of, yes, this is a fucking jellyfish in my brain, and that's all it is. And when the body is done, this voice, all of the rest of this stuff stops, right? But boy, fuck, man, is like life just sucks if that's what it is. But I mean, there is this existential crisis that people have, and it's half empty or half full. Where you have to say, well, is life meaningless and that's a bad thing, or is life meaningless and boy, how freeing is this that there isn't this larger sort of aspect of how things are. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, no matter what happens, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like how hard people want there to be meaning, and there may or may not. It's not like I have the answers.
Exactly. You are not claiming this for anybody else. You're simply stating these things for yourself. Yes.
But like I, so far at least, haven't found a reason that there needs to be meaning. And so unless that happens, maybe
that'll
change at some point if I learn something new about the universe.
But you're talking about the larger meaning of history, right? You're not like the meaning of your life is, hey, I should at least be a good husband. I should try not to fuck my kid up too much. I should probably do some nice things for myself and be nice to the people around me. This Kellen guy seems pretty lonely. I should hang out with him at least once a week.
Sure. There's sort of a personal level meaning where, it's nice to leave things better than you found it kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And hope that the people that you affected in life were affected at least in a positive way most of the time. But that's not really a meaning to life.
No.
It doesn't really have anything to do with what might happen to the mind or the soul or however, like those are very different.
Or extremely different. It's extremely different. So would then you say that, again, we're just kind of going with what you're saying, this concept of, hey, I'm trying to do good, does that play into, and again, I'm going to make a far, far stretch. I'm not saying that this is what you're saying, but does that play into, does anything about karma in terms of the larger karmic wheel, I doubt you believe in resurrection, but then does that mean for you, is there any part where you were like, no, I always want to be on the good side, right? Rather than the neutral side, right? Like, where are you? You always want to be doing good in terms of helping the people you care about, your family, those sort of stuff. Like, is there any karmic aspect of that to you?
No, not really. It's probably mostly evolutionary at this point.
Okay.
There's very strong evolutionary pressure for social animals to not be dicks to each other.
Absolutely.
At least most of the time.
There's
exceptions and there's conflicts and everything, but on average, it's better for social animals typically or at least they'll be more successful, I should say. Better is a weird, has some weird connotations to it, but more successful survival wise.
Absolutely.
To work together at least a bit.
There's a level of Darwinism in there as well, to say, great, like survival means getting along, and the more I get along with people, the better things are going to be for me in the long term. Right. You can't look at anything.
The better I leave things, the more likely my offspring will have a better chance of having offspring.
Absolutely.
And so there's sort of a cycle that has been going for a while. So,
yes.
Most people are, I would say, probably generally affected by that at some level, unless you're like seriously a sociopath or what.
Yeah. I often refer to my children as my spaceships into the future. Right. That's what you do. You're like, great. I will technically live forever because I have 2 spaceships that are going into the future long after I will be here, and hopefully they create little spaceships that will go into the future, and we'll see how far this goes. So,
exactly.
So, Brad, here's my second question, because you've kind of almost played into my little trap.
Okay.
Brad, if all of this is true, if all of this stuff is true, is that the brain is this way, this is what life is how you think about morality. Brad, what is love?
Chemical processes that have the same effect.
Okay. So you would say that love would then be a social dynamic to say, hey, for me to create a spaceship into the future, I need to, your brain tricks yourself into believing this person I see it before me, is in fact the epitome of goodness, greatness, attractiveness, sexiness, anything you want to say. Sure. I should copulate in a procreative manner to create a spaceship into the future, and then we should try our best not to murder each other.
Yeah, get that sweet, sweet oxytocin.
Yes. That's what love is for you.
Pretty much, yeah. Sorry, that answer is really short.
Poor wife, Brad. You're poor. There's nothing about love that's that way. There's no spark. There's no magic. There's no.
It is, but it's chemical. There's no magic sauce to it. It's just chemicals in the brain. They're good chemicals.
They're great chemicals. They're fantastic.
I enjoy the chemicals.
Chemicals are great.
Understanding that it's a chemical process doesn't belittle the fact that it is a thing for me, in my opinion. But I don't have to add an extra layer of anything onto it to understand the benefit of those chemicals.
Okay. So I've got some questions. And again, Brett, there's no judgment. There's no judgment at all. There's no judgment. I agree with you that there definitely is that chemical process, right? That chemical process is absolutely there, right? Like, I do not believe that like a little cherub's like, ooh, bing. Like there are pheromones that are there that are saying, that'll feel good. There are so many things that are sort of happening that are telling me this will be wonderful, this will be fantastic. And it's again, you meet someone, you start to you smell them, the pheromones, you start to see them, your body reacts. All of this stuff is absolutely chemical. It's impossible not to. But there's still the brain. The brain starts to fill in the gaps. It starts to create these beautiful narratives. You see you see the way that the sun moves differently. You feel all these different sort of things. Yes, I have been on very, very many drugs, and I have had very similar experiences in terms of like, oh man, at one time I did mushrooms. It felt like I was in love with this tree, and I said some things to that tree that I don't think I've ever said to another human being. And that's what it is. So, Brad, for you, what role does love and affection play in life? Is it a survival aspect of what you're? That's what I'm sort of guessing.
It's sort of just pressure to get people convinced to be nice to each other long enough to have kids. And
there you go.
There's a lot of other bonuses that come along with that, but that's sort of the main evolutionary pressure, I suppose. So everything else is kind of a fun side effect. So to speak.
Brad, you can talk about this as much as you want to. This is a personal question for you. What was it like when you were trying to woo your now wife? Was it?
I didn't. we were friends online, and one day we just kind of realized like we're talking a lot. We should probably meet up. And then we met up. I'm like, we tolerate each other. We should hang out more. And so we did. And then eventually we lived in different countries. So we're like, I guess if we want to live together, we got to get married because that's just the easiest, cheapest way to do that these days.
That's incredible.
So we did that.
That's amazing.
If we didn't live in different countries, we probably never would have bothered getting married. We'd still like be together.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have bothered with the paperwork and all. It's just not a thing.
There you go. So for you, Brad, and again, this is beautiful in my opinion. I find this very poetic. I'm a romantic myself. I think this is absolutely beautiful. Was there ever a point for you, Brad, where you had the sort of moment where you're like, fuck, I'm in love with this person? Like, did you ever have that moment where you were like, or what, or is that, yeah? What was that like, Brad?
I don't know. I remember it being a weird conversation over, I think it was probably Skype at the time. I don't know. I don't even know. We weren't in the same country at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember it being very strange.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of agreed like, yeah, that's the next step of what's going on. This is, we agree on this. We both feel the same way. And we're going to make this a thing.
That's wonderful, Brad. That's wonderful.
As with most aspects of my life, I'm sure it was very weird from the outside. And because of immigration thing, we have records of a lot of those conversations, actually. Anything that was in text, anyway.
Really? Because you had to go to immigration and say, hey, by the way, this is who we are and this is how we know each other?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Like, this is our relationship. Like, we're not just marrying so that she can move to a different country.
Oh, so this is not like a green card sort of thing. All right. Okay.
It was a very strange process.
Okay. So, Brad, I got my last question about feelings here, about love. And you've been so good. You've been so good. And folks at home, please give a round of applause for Brad. Brad is missing me last week when I was so docile and so beautiful. He's regretting the fact that normal Kellen is back.
Fine. No, I don't even know what does that even mean?
I don't even know what that means either. That's the thing.
That's weird. That's a weird thing to say.
It's a strange thing to say. Brad, what is easier, to love or to be loved? Were you the pursuer or were you the pursued?
I think I was probably mostly the pursued.
Oh,
it was fairly even, probably. I mean, we were friends. Like, it wasn't like a courtship situation. So it was a little more sort of even on that. But I guess I was probably more on the receiving end of that initially.
Brad, have you ever? I'm embarrassed to say this, and I'm not judging or criticizing. Have you ever courted anybody? Is that something that you are interested, or like what is Brad courting someone look like?
I don't think I have. Kellen.
Yeah,
my only serious relationships have started as friendships first, and just sort of stumbled into other things.
So walk me through that, because I think this is fascinating. So at what point? So you're friends.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, we have a conversation, and then we've transitioned from the friends to this. What changed within that? Like, obviously, there might be some physical things that change. There might be some verbal things that change.
The texting got spicier.
Spicy. Sure. Very nice. Very, very nice.
Which was a strong indication that things were moving in an at least very interesting direction for the friendship.
Okay, very nice, Brad. Very nice. So when things got a little spicy, was there like, hey, what is going on, or was it like, hey, would you like to get spicy with me? I would. Let's agree.
Basically, the spiciness is happening. Would you mind if things got spicy? And then they did.
That's so good.
And it was her that initiated the spiciness.
She was like,
I'm not going to deny spiciness. But
no, you're a big fan of spice. We know this, right? Spice. The spice must flow, Brad. Sure. But so that's what you're saying in terms of you were the one who's being pursued. That's so good, Brad. That's so good. I want to meet your wife so much, Brad.
I'm sure it'll happen at some point.
I'm sure it will. I absolutely am sure it will. My wife is fascinated by you, by the way. She's always like, I want to talk to Brad all the time. And I'm like, trust me, I do too. Okay.
Gonna have to get her on one of these.
One of these days. And she'll correct all the things I say.
Right. Like, that's not how it went, Kelly.
That's not, he doesn't actually mean that. That's not how he feels. Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
I'm
sure my wife would do the same thing, at least occasionally.
Yeah. Okay, Brad, thank you. That was my little section on love and the soul. And Brad, maybe one day you can ask me those questions, and I will get so sloppy, and you will roll your eyes. Honestly, Brad, I feel like if I started talking about the soul and love, you would look at me the same way you probably look at people who are into astrology. You'd be like,
sure, It's fine.
Okay. I'm learning a lot about Kellen. Hit me with a question, Brad. Let's hear this.
Let's see. After all that, follow up. Let's see. All right. What's the most interesting documentary you've ever watched?
There's a great documentary called The Downfall of Western Society, which is all about sort of the metal hair post-punk scene in America. And it's excellent music documentary. You get to just see the excess, the real, like, if we're thinking about like the history of music, this truly is the death of rock and roll, right? This is all about every rock star. This is why rock and roll doesn't exist as the major genre in music today, is because they got so crazy at this time, and you see just how the excess and everything, it just goes to shit. That's one of my favorites. The next one would probably be a documentary called My Kid Could Paint That, and it is an excellent look at this child prodigy painter who, as the documentary is going on, again, this young girl, I think she's like 4 or 5, is painting these incredible paintings that are vibrant, that are interesting, that have a lot of again, when we were doing that test where I was like, nope, that's a kid's painting, that's this. Like, she was doing a lot of stuff where it's like, this person knows what they're fucking doing. Like, she was doing some really interesting things with space and color and the range of how she was doing things. But the documentary, as it's going, is really just looking at this young girl. And as the documentary goes, the documentarians have to stop because they realize it is very, very clear that the parents are influencing this young girl.
Right.
The parents are kind of saying they leave out certain types of paint, right? And as the girl is done painting, they will take the painting away from her and say, no, you're done, right? And it's one of these really interesting documentaries to watch, to kind of say, one, how these parents exploit their daughter. These parents are both artists who are failed artists, and they have this daughter who happens to have natural skills doing these things, and they absolutely just exploit her and then sell her paintings and then feel so good. And as the documentary goes, it is so clear. And it's a really well done documentary because the documentarians try to stay out of it as much as possible. But midway through the movie, they put themselves in the movie because they realize they're like, this is no longer about them. This is about us. And what do we do? Like, is it ethically, we have to be able to explain this, because if we don't, if we just sort of propel the narrative that this young girl is this prodigy, they are then part of this scam that was going on. But they never catch the parents really in the act, right? There's a lot of stuff where they're making suggestions. There's things where they're doing stuff, but there's never like, hey, do this, do this, do this. They're always like subtly kind of influencing the daughter. The daughter is painting all the paintings, right? And then you interview these people who buy these paintings for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they say, oh, this painting is the most beautiful thing in the world. And the documentarians ask this question, being like, at the end of the day, what does it fucking matter? The person bought the painting and it makes them feel good. It shouldn't matter who made it. It shouldn't matter anything. So why should we get into it? And they end the documentary, and it's this bigger question where it's like, I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know why they would do something. And you watch the documentary, and they as a good documentary should, they don't make a statement. They let you, the audience, figure it out for yourself.
Sure. That sounds very interesting.
It's very, very good. I like a lot of music documentaries. I think, if you can watch a documentary about a band, it's always really, really fun. I was about to say Lars von Trier. Lars von Trier does not make documentaries. He makes snuff films. Excuse me.
A little different.
Little different. Grizzly Man is one of those films that I always struggle with. Who made Grizzly Man? Werner Herzog would make Grizzly Man. Werner Herzog makes incredible documentaries, but all of his documentaries piss me off because he's such a good guy. Have you ever watched Grizzly Man before?
Don't think so.
It's about a guy who got eaten by a grizzly bear. It's about this dumb motherfucker who went out and lived in Alaska and thought he could live amongst the grizzly bears. And he just makes bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. And he films himself the whole time. And he dies because one of these big, mean grizzly bears, spoiler alert, fucking kills him. And unfortunately, he has his video on when it happens. Yeesh. And there's a point in the documentary, and I tell this as a trigger warning because it's very triggering. Werner Herzog listens to the audio and watches it. And he says, this isn't going in the movie. There's no way I can show this in the movie. There's no way we could get this movie made. There's no way I would want people to see this. He himself has to watch it to be able to witness what's going on. Sure. But it's like one of those things where it's like wanting to watch a car wreck where you're like, well, no, show it. And then you think to yourself, you're like, why the fuck would I want to see a man eaten by a grizzly bear?
I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it. But it's the way that he teases it, where and he cries, he breaks down because it's really intense, and it's like, shit, man, it's really, really terrible. And this guy suffers this terrible death. He died. A grizzly bear eats him alive. It's absolutely terrible. And the movie sort of focuses around who he was before the incident, and then the sort of mythos around him afterwards. It's a lot like Into the Woods in terms of these dumb men who go into the woods who think, I'm going to be with nature. And then they go in nature and they're dummies and they think that they can do things that they can't. And it just pisses me off sometimes. There you go. What about, there you are. There's some of my favorite documentaries. So what about you, Brad?
I mean, I mostly sort of sciencey things, but I'm actually tend to be more entertained by anti-science documentaries or documentaries about anti-science things.
So like flat earthers. And,
exactly. There's one called, what is it? Behind the Curve, I think.
Behind the Curve, yeah. Behind the Curve is great.
About flat earthers, and they like go around to like a flat earth convention and talk to all kinds of people. And it's very science sounding a lot of the time, but if you're paying attention, like it really doesn't make any sense. And they end it on a bunch of flat earthers doing an experiment, and they just can't understand why their experiment isn't working, where they're pointing a laser to a mirror and things that try to prove that there's no curvature of the earth and stuff. It's just not working. And like, you can literally see the light, like where it would be if there was a curve to
it's so ridiculous.
But there's no like narration to it or anything. They don't explain like clearly. It's because the experiment is doing what it's supposed to, and proving that the earth is not in fact flat, but they just keep letting it go. It goes through the whole credits, and it's a good time.
That's good.
As long as you can decipher nonsense science speak. It does get, some of the speakers in it get very sciencey sounding, even though they're not actually making any sense. I like documentaries like that, where they just sort of let the ridiculousness show itself, without really sort of breaking it down all that much. Well, that's what does mean that it can be harder to interpret if the people are very good at sounding like they know what they're talking about.
I mean, that's the nice thing about a good documentary. Should the narrator and the people making the documentary should never be seen, right? They really should not get involved, and that's the problem. I really struggle with. Like when, did you ever listen to Criminal? It's a good podcast here in the States on NPR. And it was all about this essentially this crime that sort of happened. And the problem is the journalist, and again, documentary and journalism, documentary and journalism should be very similar in terms of they should be following a system of ethics to say, we are not the story.
Sure.
But the writer continued to put herself in the middle of the story and talking about herself, and it always bothers me. I don't want to know what the journalist feels. I want to know the facts. I want to have that. And I love documentaries that are like that are just like, nope, we are not part of this. This is all about the subject. Let's focus on the subject. Another great one, Brad, and this is for anybody else, Paris is Burning. If you want to see New York at the best time, in my opinion, the best time New York was ever around, it is a documentary about sort of drag and trans culture in Harlem and in the sort of the Black and Latino communities in New York City in the 1970s. And it's essentially where sort of Vogue culture comes from. It's where a lot of trans and a lot of sort of drag culture comes from. And it's an incredible documentary to watch these who essentially become icons because white women and white men steal all of their stuff, right? You watch this documentary, you're like, that's fucking Madonna right there. That's RuPaul. That's all of these people steal all of their stuff. And these men and women are the poorest New Yorkers. They're living on nothing, and many of them died of AIDS. It is such a heartbreaking story, but it is beautiful because you get to see these people who are creating their own art form that sadly gets sort of taken from them later on because of this documentary. And the documentarian does a really, really great job of trying to not allow to talk to these young men and these young women who are doing this sort of this art form of dancing and sort of being these sort of very unique sort of characters. And you can tell the documentarian realizes the cat's out of the bag. The moment she turns the camera on, it's gone. The moment the camera is on, there's no way that she can keep the stuff from getting out. And she really struggles. She really, really struggles ethically about understanding, is it worth making this movie, knowing that this will lead to all of the culture that they have being taken away from them.
Right.
Paris is Burning. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right, Brad, I got another one for you.
Already?
Brad, what are the harsh truths you prefer to ignore?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I try not to ignore harsh truths.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some.
I know the moment I saw that question, I knew how I would answer it. I was like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I think the environmental impact of my lifestyle is the thing that I cannot live with, right? Like the amount of lights and shit that I use, the amount of carbon that I use, the amount of trash, all of that. It's like, no, as much as I try to be as environmentally sound as possible, I know that there is so much waste. I know that I am so, because I'm locked in, right? Like there's only so much you can do living in a city. Like I just feel like the first 5 or 6 years of me living in Chicago was so difficult because there's not good recycling here. Like most of the recycling goes in the landfill. And so like at a certain point, you're like, well, I can't be the only one who's doing this. I want to continue doing it. I want to try. But like, that's the harshest truth of realizing it's like, I know that the earth is beyond our ability to really get it back to where it was. And I'm not doing anything to really make it better. I'm trying. I'm like giving myself a pat on the back in terms of, I don't use plastic bags. I bring my own bags, but like I could be doing so much more. And yet air conditioning and heating and lights on and internet and the rest of that. And you're like, fuck, man.
I mean, I'm kind of right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
I do a bunch of stuff in that direction, drive electric things, but there's definitely more that I could do in that regard.
Yeah, I could say the same thing in terms of like, great, I don't drive a car. I drive an electric bike around. I try and do my stuff that way. I take public transportation. I try to do as much as I can. I try to buy ethically with my food. I try to do as much as I can to that stuff. But like, there is also a level of being like, unless I'm the one who's catching my food and getting it for me, I am still part of the larger system that is destroying the fucking earth. And that's sad. And I have to ignore it and be like, well,
yeah.
How do I sleep at night?
I use weed for that.
Weed and whiskey. Weed.
But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in that same boat.
Yeah.
It doesn't help my mind all that much that most of my money comes from leeching off the financial system these days.
But hey,
Either,
if
but,
you're stealing from bad guys, you're not stealing. If you're stealing from
That's-
thieves, it's not stealing.
I'm Robin Hood, but I'm just keeping the money.
Exactly. You're giving it to the poor barista who works down the street.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not as bad as it could be, and then I'm not like running a crappy hedge fund.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily great as far as society goes, but it is what I can do currently.
It's a tough one, right? It's a tough question, right? And there are plenty of harsh truths in terms of like, God, am I gonna, like there's bigger moral and ethical things. There's more personal things about like, could I be a happier person? Could I be, and sure, like absolutely, we all could be. But like that when I heard that question, I was like, nope, that's the first thing I think about. So
yeah, that's a tricky one.
Tricky one. We'll think about that one. We'll come back to that one. You got one for me, Brian?
Sure. Here's just to lighten things maybe a little bit, just for a moment. What's the best example that you can think of correlation not equating to causation?
What's the best example I could to correlation not equating to causation?
I can give you an example.
Please, I think that'd be great.
If you want. There's many charts. You can Google, does piracy cause climate change?
Sure.
And there are charts that track the rising global temperatures to the lowering amount of pirates.
Sure.
So that's a nice, fun one that I'm aware of.
Sure.
There's all kinds of things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you said this is an easy question. I'm like, okay.
I didn't say easy. I said light.
Light. It's a lighter question. Okay. I guess you could say this. You could say, I saw this on Reddit, so this is not me. You can look at birth rates sharply declining since around mid 2000s in specifically white Western men and Asian men. And you can say in 2005, League of Legends came out, and you can say that this is one of the major reasons why birth rates are going down. Again, is it a cause? No, it's a major
probably not.
Probably not. But boy,
I mean, maybe. Probably not.
Maybe.
It's like the what birth control do you use? World of Warcraft kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. I can say this, Brad. The amount of attention that I've received from men and women has increased since I've purchased overalls. I don't know if that's a direct correlation.
I think it might be a cause. I think it might be.
You think that's exactly it? Yes.
Do you want another just little quick one?
Let's go. Hit me some quick.
All right, what's a current trend that you hope stays around for a while?
Ooh, okay. A trend that I hope stays around for a while.
Just a trend or a thing that's happening.
I'm kind of enjoying the fact that it's sort of like the impossible food, like this idea of meat-esque plants is finally kind of getting cool, right? Sure. Like the idea of like, oh, I can go to Dunkin' Donuts and get like an impossible sausage biscuit or something like that. Like it's still shitty processed food, right?
Sure.
Like an impossible burger is still a processed burger, but like, sure, it's not any better for you. And I think that's the thing we have to kind of get through our heads. It's like, it's still processed food, and processed food means it's not necessarily good, right? You could just eat vegetables and that would be good for you.
Sure.
Yes.
You get the ethical benefits, but not the health benefits.
The health benefits, right? Yes. Well, that's a whole nother thing. But I like that we're finally at that place where that's where we are, right? Where the idea of eating a a processed piece of plant that is going to it's going to duplicate what meat could do. I think that's very, very cool. And I'm excited for this because I think the problem has always been, especially here in America, we love fucking meat, man. Meat's the thing, you know. And I just have always been one of those people who is like, well, yeah, like I trust me, eating a hamburger is fantastic. Eating animals is so good, but it's also not really good for us, and it's also not good for the environment. So if we could do better things, it'll be that way. I think that's good. So I'm happy to see that, like specifically like on TikTok or Twitter, like seeing more people talk about this. And again, I also understand it's all marketing. I also understand that it's sort of a campaign to get people to buy more. Like it's still corporate, it's still consumerism.
Sure,
but
the more people buy it, the more they can afford to make more of it, and it'll spread better. So I mean,
it will be better.
A lot of marketing, but like it's still good.
It's still good. It's still good. It's a good thing. I think that way. I think that's a very, very good thing. I really liked that trend where people were like going to beaches and other places and like picking up all the trash and then showing all the trash bags. I thought that was a very, very cool trend. I liked that a lot. Yeah, those are two trends that I like, and I hope they stick around quite a bit. What about you?
I think this is not going to shock you, but curbside pickup being an option of basically everything.
Oh boy, yeah, Brad.
So
I mean,
handy.
I think that's the thing. That's the thing. It's so good. Curbside pickup. I'm just
the world is on fire, but man, that curbside pickup is real handy.
It's mine. I got my Tim Hortons. I'm going.
Yeah.
Brad, here's a question for you. Here's a light question for you. If colors had taste, what would each color taste like?
If only I had synesthesia and I could just tell you. That would be real handy.
Would be, right?
Man.
We'll start with some easy ones. What does blue taste like, Brad? What would blue taste like?
Blue taste like?
Yeah.
Kellen, this is going to be really hard for me to answer. I don't know if those parts of my brain talk to each other very well. I can't even. When I think of what blue tastes like, I just think of like a shitty blue freezy, like a popsicle nut. Like I don't know even what that flavor would be.
Mm-hmm. I think most people would probably start going to fruit, right? I think people would say, "Oh, red equals cherry, or red equals strawberry, green equals lime, or green equals grape." But it's interesting to also think about like, well, what comes from something blue? It's like, oh, I think blue. I think the ocean. I think like oysters. I think about something briny that way. I think about green. I probably think about something really leafy, like kale or chard or something else like that. I think about yellow. I think about something really bright. Maybe I think about cheese. Maybe I think about something sour that way. I saw that question. I knew you probably couldn't answer it too well.
Terrible. No, yeah,
so
I don't. I can't even. That completely short circuits my ability to find words. Like I don't. Those don't talk to each other. That's not how that works. I can't do that.
Oh, it's so good. Oh.
So I gave you the expected response.
The expected response. It's funny. It's funny. Brad, what is a waste of money?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. Do you have like a top thing you think most people waste money on?
Lottery tickets.
Lottery tickets. Okay. Lottery tickets are a waste of money. Okay, I get that. Again, I'm not a gambler. I get it. When people are like, "Oh, I'm buying a Powerball," it's like, okay.
Yeah. Cheap furniture.
Oh, okay. Walk me through that. That's interesting. Cheap furniture.
Because it'll just fall apart faster. Like you're almost always better off buying decently expensive furniture within. I mean, there's definitely a range.
Exactly.
Ridiculous, but you're almost always better off buying decently expensive furniture than cheap furniture in the long run.
Yeah, because it's going to last, right? Like,
I mean, my parents have tables and chairs that they've had for 40 years.
Yes. Yeah. So would you consider, just for conversation's sake, let's say I'm a 20-something single American man. Are you saying that I should be spending money on decent to moderately priced furniture, or should I
milk crates and blankets until you can afford something decent?
There you go. At what point?
Skip the middle step of the shitty IKEA nonsense, unless it's for some reasonably disposable thing or something that you're not really going to like mess around with much, like TV cabinets or whatever. Once it's up, and you don't necessarily need to futz with it, and so it's probably going to last.
Yeah,
but any kind of chairs or anything that is going to get actual use and touched and moved.
Yeah.
You need at least some level of quality, or it's just going to fall apart too fast.
Yeah, I kind of had a rule growing up being like a teen in my early 20s, where I said, I'm not going to buy something from IKEA unless I know I'm going to be in a place for at least 3 years. Right? There's no point in me buying a bookshelf if I'm going to take this down in a year, right? And so it was like I was definitely like milk crates and cinder blocks and 2x4s, and again, that worked with my aesthetic. It totally worked with my aesthetic. People came over like, this is fucking cool. And I was like, yes, I get a lot of people can't do that, but I completely agree with you. It's almost not worth it to like be investing in cheap furniture. If you can afford something moderately priced, buy the moderately priced thing, because it will last. It will be so good for you. Nice. All right. You got another one for me?
Sure. Let's see. Oh, here's one. What is an awkward thing that happens to you on a regular basis? Like not just like an awkward event that happened, but like something that happens to you
on
at least semi-regularly
basis.
That's awkward. Do you have anything? Because I definitely had some things, but I was curious to find out if that made me super weird.
What do we constitute as awkward, I guess?
I mean, I guess that's kind of subjective. It would be something that you find awkward, I suppose.
I don't find a lot of things awkward. I really don't. Like, but I'm like, I guess. So again, my job, I talk with businesses and I help them market their companies. Right, that's like my day job. And I've been on Zoom for years, and the worst thing is when I don't even know if this is awkward. It's not awkward for me. I know it's awkward for other people. I know it's super awkward for other people. When we're on a Zoom call and I say, great, you have any more questions? They say, no, I'm really good, Kellen. Thank you so much. I'm like, fantastic. All right, well, great. I'll talk to you next week. We got the schedule. This is the plan. Hey, I got one more question for you. All right, great. And we end up, all right, cool. Any more questions? No, you're good. All right, I got one more question for you. And then I say, I'm like, hey, I talked with this lady today, Holly. I said, hey, Holly, you can tell me all the questions you want. You don't have to like kind of slip this in at the end. And she's like, I know, I just don't want to have that sort of thing. I guess like they're like, I don't find that awkward, but I know for my clients, they find it very awkward how they deal with stuff.
Sure.
I don't know, Brad. I don't think I have a lot of awkward moments, but I don't know if golly. I don't know. I don't think I have a lot of awkward moments anymore.
That's fair.
I know when I was in the office, I might have awkward moments where I would notice people were being awkward around me, but I kind of got over the awkwardness a while ago when I just kind of said, like, I can't control how other people sort of feel. But it's a very me sort of thing. When you do improv for as long as I have, it's like I can think on my feet pretty fucking hard. It's not. I'm not like, what am I going to say? I'm like, let's do this. What is one of your awkward moments?
That's fair. Okay, well, let me paint you a picture. I'm going to the airport, so I get into an Uber, my luggage. We get to the airport, get out of the car, grab my luggage. The driver says, "All right, have a nice trip." Mm-hmm. And I say, "Thanks, you too." And I close the door. And I've done that no less than 5 times.
Okay. Then I've got one for you, Brad. That my brother reminds me of this all the time. This is very awkward. This is very, very awkward. This only happens once, so I can't. This is another thing. Homeless man here in Chicago. Comes up to me and said, "Hey man, did you burn any change?" I said, "No. No, but thank you. And the way that I said thank you to him was so like, hey, thanks for offering. Thank you for offering to me that I could give you sort of money, right? And my brother, who is an extremely awkward individual, still finds me saying thank you to this homeless person as the most awkward thing he's ever seen in his entire life. And I was like, no, I just said, no, thank you. Like, thank you for asking, but no, I don't have any money. And he's like, why the fuck would you say thank you to a homeless man asking you for money? And I was like, I don't know.
I mean, I could see that being a little awkward.
It's a little awkward. It's not as awkward as like, hey, enjoy your meal. Hey, you too. Like
right. That's just. And now the problem is now that's in my brain, right?
Oh
like
yeah,
that pattern is in my brain.
That's in your brain.
So it doesn't matter how hard I try not to think about it. That's the pattern that my brain spits out.
The neural pathway goes that way. Yes.
And I haven't been able to untrain it yet. So that seems likely to happen again at some point in the future.
Brad, I got a question for you.
All right.
I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this for you. What unnecessary product or service do you consider necessary?
What unnecessary
product or service?
So, in other words, what someone else would consider unnecessary.
Exactly. It's not even a luxury. It's what someone else would be like, you pay for that? And you're like, this is essential, man. I need this. There's no way I could live without this. Right? And you can't say my OnlyFans. That doesn't count. You don't pay for that yet.
It's not yet. I mean, I'd say internet, but a lot of people these days would consider that pretty essential.
Yeah, I think internet's pretty essential.
What do I pay for? I mean, there's like video game things or like entertainment things, like PlayStation Now access and stuff.
But is that unnecessary? Right? PlayStation Now. Again, there's plenty of great PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 as a purpose. There's a purpose, right? Like we're talking about someone's like if you were like, yeah, like every Tuesday, I have a Puerto Rican woman come and she comes over to my house and she puts on golf cleats and she, steps all over my body and then she sucks out all the gunk under my toes and I pay her in a big bag of corn and then she leaves. Like,
are you saying that stress relief is unnecessary? Seems very rude.
I think there are probably
I'm very minimalistic with that kind of thing. Like all of the stuff I pay for is generally like an entertainment thing because I have a 5-year-old. Yeah. So like we got Netflix and Disney Plus and all of that kind of stuff. But like that all kind of serves a purpose. I wouldn't call any of it unnecessary, sort of from a general point of view. That I don't know. I mean, some people would probably consider my Soylent subscription unnecessary.
No, but
it has a purpose for me.
It has a purpose for you. That has a purpose for you. You're absolutely right. I think that's actually a good example because I think someone would say, "Well, why do you spend it on Soylent? Why don't you just make your food?" You're like, "Well, why don't you just drink Soylent?" It's
right. It's like it's a weird subjective thing, but for me, it is helpful.
It's helpful for you, and that's what matters.
So it serves a purpose. It's not necessarily a purpose that everyone would agree matters.
But it still serves a purpose.
I don't know. Do you have an example of something? I'm very minimalist with most things. I min-max my spending on things.
Yeah, I would say
I have an expensive chair, expensive computer equipment, cheap almost everything else.
Yeah, because everything I buy, I can justify for either a creative project or for something for me that is going to do something more that way, right? Like I have here's an example of something I would probably say most people would be like, what's the deal with this? I have a rice cooker, Brad, that cost me $300, right? And it looks like a little robot. It looks like a beautiful little Japanese robot, and it's beautiful, and it looks like a tiny little elephant, and I love it. And it sings a song to me when I turn it on when my rice is made, and it makes rice better than anything else, and it's incredible. And I'm so happy that I purchased it, and it's one of my favorite tools that I have in my kitchen. I find that is a necessary thing for me to have my $300 rice cooker. It's wonderful. But I can also make rice in a pot. Like, I don't need to have the rice cooker, but boy, is it nice to be able to look at my little beautiful Japanese robot boy and say, I can't wait till it sings this beautiful song to me, and I know the rice is done, and the rice is always perfect, right?
That's fair. Jeremy, you know for a fact that I only shave like maybe once every 4 or 5 months. So Dollar Shave Club would be a waste of money. That's crazy.
Dollar Shave Club. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Brad, do you have a quick one, or are we done for the night? Tonight flew by.
Let's see. Do I have a quick one? Oh, sure. Just, what's the most recent show that you binge watched? Or do you binge watch shows at all?
I don't really binge watch shows. I am watching The Big Bang Theory with you, and so far
it's a very slow binge.
It's a slow watch. What's the last show? Probably Naruto. I've been watching Naruto kind of on and off. Kind of going back and watching some classic anime on Hulu. The best thing that I like about that show is it's a good, if I just want to have like something on in the background and also be doing something else, like it's excellent. And I also have like a list of like, the problem with anime in general is there's so much fluff that you don't need to watch, and I just want all of the good stuff.
Sure.
So there's a lot of really great sites to say, great, here's the order you should watch these episodes in. Don't watch like these 20 episodes because it's just fluff. And like Naruto actually is, I think, a very fun show. It's all about overcoming hardship. It's all about setting goals for yourself. I think it's a very cool show for kids specifically. And I remember watching it as a young adult and being like, this show is awesome. And watching it as an adult now with a little blonde kid who looks like Naruto, it's very, very fun to watch. And I watch it by myself. I don't watch it with my son. I watch Naruto by myself. I've tried to get Dennis to watch Naruto, and he's like, this kid's annoying. And I'm like, you're annoying. You are Naruto. Do not give me this shit that you like. You thinking like this kid is annoying. This is exactly who you are. It's a fun show, and it's I think it's very well animated, and I probably watched like 90 episodes, but I stopped like I don't know when I stopped. I probably stopped like probably mid-January. I stopped watching it. But it's still a fun show. Anime is very easy to binge. It's very, very easy because it's cartoons, right? Cartoons in general are very easy to binge watch. So yeah. What about you, Brad?
Probably Altered Carbon.
Oh, fun.
I went through that recently. It's only 2 seasons, but still.
That was one of those shows.
Cyberpunk-esque sort of noir.
I didn't know why that show didn't take off, man. The aesthetic of that show is great.
So
sexy, so fun.
So good. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's coming back. So
probably not.
2 seasons is all you get. There's more books, though. There's a third book, and I think the 4th might be on the way. I'm not sure exactly, but there's more story at least. But the show seems like it is done, unfortunately. It looked really cool. Like the aesthetic is great.
Mm-hmm.
The story's fun. Just a good time. And I'm into cyberpunk stuff.
Your buddy Jeremy, Cowboy Bebop. Oh, I can watch that show.
It's been a long time since I've seen Cowboy Bebop, but that is one of the few anime that I have seen.
Oh man, that's a good one. That's an easy one to sit down and watch all of it. It's very contained. It's very easy to watch that way, which is good. So,
this
Brad,
has been a lot of fun.
This has been a lot of fun.
Much more prepared than you were last week. So
I was in a strange store last week, and I appreciate you being patient with me, Brad.
Anytime.
Thanks, bud. Well, for everyone who's still here, thank you so much for joining us. We always have a lovely time talking with each other, and the fact that anybody decides to watch us to this lovely show is always a pleasure. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell.
I don't actually know what the context is of this.
I think Hannah is always a little far behind on the comments. I believe that is what is an unnecessary product or service you consider necessary? Strippers.
That's an entertainment relief sort of thing.
Stress relief.
You're paying for someone's college or whatever.
Exactly. You're just trying to support
plenty of benefits.
Small business. That's really what it is.
All right, this has been a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brad. I hope you have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, everybody. See you next week.